Previously on JSpeaks.
With my accident, we're gonna go with the sexual assault. That's the one I'll use. Ed wanted me to heal. Ed wanted me to go to the therapist.
Oh, yeah.
Ed wanted me to do it because I loved Ed and because I knew he loved me and only had the best interest for me. He didn't want anything to harm me. I went to therapy for Ed. I didn't go because I felt like I was in that phase of wanting to heal. I went because it was recommended by someone that I knew loved me, that cared for me, that supported me. But that was still the wrong reason for me to seek out support. Because again, by me doing that, the work that I had put in, I almost lost all of it by doing it prematurely because someone else wanted me to do it. This is what I mean. They have to be intentional about their own healing. They can't do it for a loved one or for a friend. They have to do it because they're ready to heal. They're ready to move forward. And just because it's delayed for however long it's delayed, does not mean they do not want to heal at all. It just means that they're not ready to address this huge elephant.
Check out today. Introducing Florida Devole Dudley, founder of Florida Soars.
And it was a community because everybody knew everybody. Everybody's parents had carte blanche, to handle you if you were out of line. But we were at the time in the county, and so there weren't a lot of resources, So the community was very self-reliant and very self-sufficient, and that we took care of each other within the community. And so to this day, that holds a special place in my heart for some of for the community as a whole, but for some of the people that still live in the community that were part of raising me into the adult that I am now. I feel a duty and need to look out for them. I feel a duty and need to uphold the legacy of the community as gentrification comes through, because we are small, and so that people don't go Merrick-Moore who, Merrick-Moore what. I want people to know the origins of this community, the people who lived here, who built this, and what their visions and dreams were.
Hello everyone. For those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. And for those of you who are subscribed to JSpeaks, thank you so much and welcome back. As you know, it is my mission, it is my passion to bring to you all conversation topics that are positive, motivational, educational, and informational. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to be here with Bonita Green, the President and Executive Director of the Merrick-Moore Community Development Corporation. The Merrick-Moore Community Development Corporation, within its diverse community, which resides along Cheek Road in Durham, North Carolina, exists for educational and charitable purposes. The Merrick-Moore Community Development Corporation's charge is to improve the lives of the poor, underprivileged, and disenfranchised by strengthening the bonds amongst its residents, which include, but are not limited to, providing a forum for the sharing of ideas and information, promoting activities and events, fulfilling community needs, and enhancing homeowners' property. Bonita Green and her family were one of the founding families within the Merrick-Moore community, and her father was a past president. Growing up, Bonita attended Merrick-Moore High School, grades 2 through 5. Her and her family were active members of the Mount Zor Baptist Church, where her father was the head of the deacon board and her mother was a deaconess. All in all, Bonita has always remembered this community to be a place where everyone knew each other, neighbors were there to lend a hand, and there was always a sense of togetherness. Now, as the President and Executive Director of the Merrick-Moore Community Development Corporation, Bonita's goals are wrapped in activism. She has been ensuring the safety of residents by lobbying for infrastructure improvements along Cheek Road. She has been seeking out resources for those who need financial help with home repairs. She has been helping to manage and oversee the community garden, and she is responsible for beautifying this community. Joining us today, we have 3 core members, all within the Merrick-Moore Community Development Corporation. Anaya Bourne, who's the videographer of the organization. Alexander Joyce, who is the community garden manager. And L.A. Davis Durante, who's an urban conservation community fellow. Ladies and gentlemen, please sit back, relax, and most importantly, listen. And hopefully after today's episode, you understand for yourself why the Merrick-Moore Community Development Corporation values community service, activism, teamwork, loyalty, trust, and respect.
So Anaya, Bonita, LA, Alexander, how are you guys doing today?
Great.
Doing great.
Doing great? How was your guys' weekend?
It was good.
Very eventful.
Very eventful.
You guys had a busy day today.
Yeah, we had a busy day. It was a busy weekend too. These guys were out planting fruit trees on our garden property. So it's been a busy weekend.
Well, I'm excited to get into all of that and more. But before we officially get started, please, introduce yourselves to me and the camera. What I would like to do is if you can just say your name, your full name. Well, let's start with Bonita, but everybody. Your full name, Bonita, you in particular, you'll give a brief overview of Merrick-Moore, and specifically, why did you guys choose to join the organization? So we'll start with Bonita.
So my name is Bonita Green, and I am the Executive Director of the Merrick-Moore Community Development Corporation, which used to be the Merrick-Moore Community Club. And the club started in like 1952, and it was made of men and women who lived in the Merrick-Moore community. The men looked after the exterior of homes, made sure everything was up to code and was beautified, you know. And then the women actually took care of the inside of the home. So if there was a woman in the household was sick or anybody was sick, the women would come together, they would cook, they would clean, they would buy groceries, they would do laundry, whatever it needed to happen to support the family until the lady of the house or whoever else was in that household was back up on their feet again. And the ladies club started first and then evolved into the men with the community club. And then over time, as the organization grew and they had bigger visions, they bought property, they were going after grant money, and so in 1997 they applied with the state to become a nonprofit, so that at that point it became the Merrick-Moore Community Development Corporation. And that leads us, you know, kind of to where we are today and the work that we do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm Anaya Bourne. I'm the photographer, videographer, and website manager for MMCDC. And I joined the organization after I was actually connected with Bonita through the Conservation Fund. And then I just fell in love with Bonita's passion for the community and just the work that she had planned, because I joined pretty early on when things were starting to get rolling. So I was just excited just to join the team with her and support her and the community in their work. And then as I was more involved with the organization, meeting the community members, I just fell more in love with the people here and Bonita. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, L.A. Davis Dubrant. I am the Urban Community and Conservation Fellow here, and so my background is I've been experiencing nonprofits for about a decade, and so previously I've been working with in conservation and land trust, and had gotten a chance to meet Bonita, work with Bonita at that organization, and so when the fellowship opportunity came up, I took it naturally, but also I have like similarly to Anaya, a deep reverence for the history of Merrick-Moore, the work that Bonita does, so just generally that the community organizations are vital in this landscape right now, especially where we have marginalized communities just on the receiving end of so many systemic, I should say, failures. And so Merrick-Moore not being exempt from that is definitely a passion of mine. So especially if coming from that advocacy and organizing background, I see that a lot of work is necessary for communities like this one. So I'm very honored to be able to work in a community that, you know, is so close to home for me. So.
I'm Alex Joyce. I'm the garden manager with Merrick-Moore Community Development Corporation, and specifically at the Samuel Green Senior Community Garden here in the neighborhood. And I got in touch with Bonita, and she was looking for a garden manager, and also helped create a food for us. And I'm all about fresh, delicious, nutrient-dense food, and food that's grown local for the community. And I was like, yes, where do I sign up? So.
Wow. And how many years for all of you?
I joined the team, this is 2025, I think 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2019, so it's been a few years.
So I technically joined last summer, so about 10 months.
Okay.
I've been on since August, so fairly recent.
Wow. So anyone can go online and read your mission, but I want to ask you guys personally, what does Merrick-Moore mean to you? Anyone can answer.
Oh,
I'll let them think for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let them think for a second. Well, you know, I was born in this community, and it was a community because everybody knew everybody. Everybody's parents had carte blanche, you know, to handle you if you were out of line. But we were at the time in the county, and so there weren't a lot of resources, you know. So the community was very self-reliant and very self-sufficient, and that we took care of each other within the community. And so to this day, that holds a special place in my heart for some of for the community as a whole, but for some of the people that still live in the community that were part of raising me into the adult that I am now. I feel a duty and need to look out for them. I feel a duty and need to uphold the legacy of the community as gentrification comes through, because we are small, and so that people don't go Merrick-Moore who, Merrick-Moore what. You know, I want people to know the origins of this community, the people who lived here, who built this, and what their visions and dreams were for this community and for each other as a whole.
Curious, has Merrick-Moore always been working like in a silo?
So this community, if I go back, okay, what was originally here before was called the Millie Rone Hall Estate on the Roane Plantation. It was sharecropping land. And in the 1940s, I think it was V.R. Pope was a developer that kind of designated that this land, he came in, he bought the land, he subdivided it off into lots. And then it was determined that it was where black people would live. So the lots were sold to black people. Prior to that, it was sharecropping, and it was primarily white people that lived here. And to this day, there are still some grave sites that are still in the community that haven't been cared for in many years that were from that from. But it was decided and determined that black people would live here. And we were in the county at that time. So there was a lot of advocacy from the people within the community to be annexed into the city, which took time to do. At first we were city out, then we became a part of the city, because during that time when I was born, it was outhouses and wells. You know, it was pitch black dark out here. And so to have those modern conveniences, I remember when the phone lines, we got phones and they were party lines. There was no private line because that cost extra. So, yeah, and even to this day, because Merrick-Moore is so small, we were overlooked a lot by the city, you know, and getting, you know, it seemed that resources were being taken away from us as our property taxes went up. And so there was initially a large part of our advocacy went into gaining the recognition and respect that we deserve from the city, making them aware, hey, you know, it is not a fair practice to extract funds from this neighborhood and you're not putting anything back into the neighborhood.
Why do you think that was so? Do you think it was so because of the size? They thought it was, oh, this is a small community, we don't really care about it?
So it's understanding zoning and planning and understanding that there are 5, 10, 25, 30, 50-year plans. When your planning departments are planning for future growth. And this little area, because we are an unincorporated area, was seen as a pathway to get to bigger things, basically. And so I feel that we'll just take these, probably the idea is we will stop providing services, allow the values of the property to go down to make it easier for developers to come in and purchase property and land that we can then, through gentrification and through property tax abatements, that we can gain land and property easier and turn it into something different. For instance, there's a 50-acre soccer park that a large part of it sits in Merrick-Moore, that the city purchased that land, I think, in 2018. And we didn't have any say-so over what was going to be developed there. And even though we didn't have any say-so in that part, I was determined we were going to have a say-so in what that park was going to be named. And so they wanted to name it Hoover Road Sports Park, but we had fought hard, and these guys can tell you, especially Anaya, to get them to name it, not only to name it Merrick-Moore Park, but that the public art that's in that park is reflective of the history of this community. and the people that it was named after.
You guys had enough time to think, or I have some more questions if you guys don't have an answer.
Sure. Actually, could you repeat the question again?
I said, what does Merrick-Moore mean to you? Merrick-Moore Community Development Corporation mean to you?
It means being a part of history, and a part of a legacy, being a part of a historic neighborhood, and the resourcefulness and the yes, the resourcefulness and the folks of this community who have who maintain their own gardens and who help each other and support each other. And yeah, there's a lot of things I can't really put into words right now, but I could, see it when I'm talking to people in the community, and I just want to be a part of that.
I think I kind of spoke personally. I mean, to be more personal, I mean, to be somebody who grew up in Durham, and I don't live in Durham now, but I still love Durham. And for Merrick-Moore speaks so much to me because it reminds me of how I was raised. I was raised by my grandmother and a lot of my elders in my family. And so there's a lot of elders in this community that not only have such long histories of knowing Durham themselves, but they have wisdom and so much to share while they're still here. And I think that speaks to me as, again, like my upbringing, just to be able to honor those that are here while they're still here, but also to get that what is vital but not often seen as vital information to preserve what is here so that it can be passed along in the future. So sometimes Merrick-Moore is just it's so emblematic of that. It's hard to put into words, but it really is the past, looking back at the past so that we know how to study the future and weather the future. So, yeah.
I would say, I guess, determination to preserve their community. So a lot of the work that they put in is to make sure they keep it is hard to put this into words. I guess keep the love that they have for one another, and then the fight that they had because of the love that they have for one another in the community. So making sure that, resources are still coming into the community, that there's equitable change happening, and that, they don't lose sight of the work that the people that paved the way for them put in to get them to where they are now, and to make sure you don't lose what the community was and hopefully will continue to be.
So talk a little bit more about that, because you mentioned the fight for the park name.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that that's just one of the many instances where you have to fight and stand up for Merrick-Moore. How has that been? Has that been a pleasant ride? Has that been difficult for the most part?
I would say, with me being behind the camera and documenting a lot of the work that Benita's doing as the Merrick-Moore community leader, I don't think it's been an easy path. I think for me, if I was in Benita's shoes, a lot of the times I would have cried and threw the towel in, because you're facing a lot of obstacles. A lot of people saying no, we're not going to do this, but with her determination, she keeps pushing and fighting for what is right to get the needs for this community and the resources that they need done. But definitely not easy. A lot of the things that the community members face and have to deal with, I know it's probably many sleepless nights, because it's a hard fight. It definitely is a hard fight.
Talk a little bit about that. What are the people in the community dealing with?
I guess they're dealing with lack of resources, and then the lack of support from the city for those resources. Because there's only so many times you can, I feel, show up to the city council meetings and keep asking for the same things over and over again. So keep getting the door closed in your face or getting a lot of no's. That can be definitely unmotivating and hard, and then you just want to give up. But you have to have those people, those community leaders that will continue to fight and hopefully motivate the community members and residents to stand up and continue to fight with them and allow their voices to be heard. You shouldn't allow the city officials, people in other powerful positions to make you be quiet or shut you up. You gotta continue to fight. And even if you think you're not gonna see it in maybe your lifetime or that you're here, that work that you're putting in could hopefully impact the future generations of the people that will later be here.
So talk about that. So when it comes to fighting for and standing up for the Merrick-Moore community with the officials, how long does that process take? Or how long can it take?
Well, I will give you a for instance. So one of the things that we have been fighting for, my parents were fighting for when I was a child, and that's sidewalks.
Wow.
And we're still fighting for those things. And actually, there was an article that came out last fall that was a year in the making, and it was of a young boy, John, I can't remember his first name, but his last name, but he was struck and killed on Cheek Road trying to go to school, and that was 35 years ago. And the road is the same, and no changes have been made. And so we're still, we're still fighting for this. We are actually hopefully closer right now because we've been fortunate enough to partner with some of the professors in the urban planning department at UNC and with Bracktown leadership on a Robert Wood Johnson's Foundation grant for community connectors. And so this involved the students going out and documenting traffic speeds, different times of day, missing infrastructure, things like that. Over, I will say, like an 18-month period, compiling that into a report. And now we're in a phase where we're going to have some of the agencies that provide technical support with us, such as Smart Growth America. We're working with them. Equitable Cities and Equivolve. They're going to be coming to Durham to do a site visit, to see and help us support the advocacy and being able to move it forward. And in a way, it already has, because I'm going to say this is a Durham, Chapel Hill, Carrboro, MPO, recently changed their name to the Triangle West Metropolitan Transportation Organization. They're getting involved in looking for funds to be able to correct some of these issues. So I can see that we're not going to get there tomorrow, but we're getting closer. And so it's a lot of hard work. It is a lot of strong advocacy, a lot of being able to stand up to the powers that be and letting them know when they're wrong, and letting them know that, especially when they're trying to do covert things, that, hey, we're aware, and that's not going to happen over here. And so, so it's challenging. The biggest challenge that I have, because people have been in the fight for a long time, after a while they're like, oh, let the young people do it. But the hard thing is getting my generation, because a lot of people in my generation moved out of the neighborhood. There are a few that are still here, but most of them move out of the neighborhood. But getting that generation and then the children behind them involved and letting them know how important it is for them to be involved in this process now, to learn it, to be able to carry the work forward, in the future. But hey, I've always enjoyed a good fight. I don't back down easy from people. I will say that I don't back down and I don't take no. I just redirect and come from a different point of view, because I feel that God always provides me with another way. And I have strong faith in that. It's like, maybe this wasn't the path to take, but there's another way to get there. So I don't accept a no ever. It's a maybe, and we're going to get there. But eventually we're going to see the dreams come to fruition. And that's what's most important to me, is that the things that my parents and their friends, the other parents in this neighborhood, the things that they were fighting for, I want to see them come to fruition.
Were you always like that, or did this position bring that out of you?
I'm a Scorpio. So the determination and fight is always there. It's just looking for the right challenge. And I think what happened is, you know, I went through, my mother passed in 2019, and it was, you know, it was heart failure, but it was a slow growth. And I think, you know, right after that, I went through some health implications of my own, and coming out of that, and then we were in COVID, but coming out of that, I think I just channeled all of that energy and grief from my mother into this fight.
Wow. So talk about the high school, the significance, the history of the high school too.
Yeah, so Merrick-Moore was one of the first, well, one of the premier black high schools in Durham that won state championships in basketball and in football. The school originally, there was Mill Grove was a high school that was located somewhere between Bragtown and Catstown, at the northern end of it. And then Rocky Knoll, which was going further east out in Gorman area, was the middle school. Mill Grove caught fire, and there was no high school. So the leaders in this community, Ms. Maud Thompson was one of the ones that spearheaded that, actually lobbied with the city and the county to have the school located in this neighborhood. And that was approved. And then they also lobbied that the school be named after John Merrick and Dr. McDuffie Moore, who were two of Durham's premier black leaders in the communities, in the business community, but also Dr. McDuffie Moore was also the first black doctor in Durham.
Wow.
And he founded Lincoln Hospital. And I believe he was also responsible for, I think it's the Watts Nursing Center, but it was a nursing school for black women to go to become nurses. So this, if you really look back at it, John Merrick was born a slave, taught himself how to read and write. He did carpentry. And from that, he went on to become a business leader. Aaron McDuffie Moore, along with the Spalding's family, and there might have been one other family, they founded North Carolina Mutual. They had real estate a company. They actually did a lot of real estate holdings within the city. They were responsible for a lot of the businesses in Black Wall Street. Yeah, they did a lot. And so this community holds the names of these two great men behind them, you know, as pushing them forward. So there were a lot of firsts. So when I say that the community was a resilient and self-sufficient community, this is where we come from. Because during that time, black people weren't allowed to go beyond the 8th grade. Even with my parents, it's like one of them had an 8th grade education, another had a 3rd grade education. And so, and that was intentional because, you know, back then they didn't want black people to be too educated. But just because you don't have a high school education doesn't mean that you're not an intelligent being. And so what I saw was a community of people who didn't have high school diplomas. They owned land, they had jobs, they had gardens, they raised children, they owned cars. They did all of the things that everybody else was doing, but maybe just at a smaller scale. I mean, growing up here, we didn't know we were poor. We didn't know middle class, because everybody was just the same, you know, here. So I got off topic totally from the high school and went to this, but the other thing about the high school is that it was also a place where a lot of people who lived in the community worked there. A lot of the ladies who lived in the community, including my mom, worked the cafeteria. There were men in the community who worked in custodial positions, and women too, who worked in custodial positions at the school. So it was a place of employment for people who lived within the community. But it was cool because, you know, you were in school with all your friends, you know. For me, I went to elementary school. I went there from the 2nd grade through the 5th grade. That's when integration started coming in the 4th and 5th grade. And I remember the good times when the high school students were still there, because the elementary school was on the first floor and the middle school, high schoolers were all downstairs, and where the cafeteria was. So there was one high school teacher there that, I don't know, I made friends with her. You know, she made friends with me. She always had candy in her desk. So every day, I always made a beeline to her room first before anything. And when the bell rang, I was making a mad dash through everybody to get back to my classroom. But it was a special, special school, a special place for us to go. And we were in, like I said, we were in the neighborhood. When I went to the 6th grade, that's when the busing started. You know, that was the tail end of that. But the sad thing now is that there was a lot of memorabilia in that school that was just thrown away in dumpsters. So even furthermore importance that we're documenting history. Anaya is helping me work on an oral history project, trying to, you know, get people to share their stories of, you know, growing up here in the community. It's, you know, I don't ever want this community to be forgotten, or the people who built it. Yeah.
How's that been, the oral stories?
Oh, it's been great. It's been, I guess, going on 2 or 3 years now, where we're interviewing current or former Merrick-Moore residents and also Merrick-Moore High alumni. So just sitting down and speaking with them and recording their stories that they have to tell, whether that's in person or virtually, because you know a lot of them have moved out of North Carolina, and it's so wonderful to be able to hear the history directly from them. Especially, it's a lot of information and stories that you're not going to get in your textbooks or local resources. So it's just a great time to be able to talk to them and hear directly while they're still here with us.
Use some adjectives from the interviews that you've had with them. How have they described their experience at Merrick-Moore?
I guess a lot of it is like a loving community. I know a lot of them, what they have in common is they always say that everyone looked out for each other. All the neighbors looked out for each other, they cared for each other. And then I know there was a lot of them that faced issue when it came to integration, because they lost that sense of community with one another with when the integration did occur. So I know those were definitely common stories with the people that I have interviewed.
And I noticed on your website, I read that it was a high school from grades 2 through 5, so it was an elementary school.
No, it was started at elementary. It started at grade 1, but I didn't enter until the 2nd grade because my
It says
with my
yeah.
yeah.
I'm just letting you know. It says high school.
It says high school, but it was a high school. Yeah, it's an elementary school now.
Oh, so it was a high school.
It was
grades
a high school.
2 through 5.
It was 1 through 5. I didn't enter until the 2nd grade.
2nd grade.
But Merrick-Moore, when it was built, it was a high school. It was Merrick-Moore High.
Got it.
Yeah, and it was one of the black high schools. There was Merrick-Moore, there was Hillside, and there was Durham High. Those were the black high schools, and I don't think there was another. I think there was just those three.
I don't think Southern was here yet. Was it?
No, well, Southern wasn't a black high school. It was here, but it was something different. But yeah, so those were the high schools that kind of competed and played against each other, and won because they couldn't really compete against the white high schools because back then the schools were very much segregated.
Wow. They couldn't even compete.
No. I actually have an old book. It says the superintendent's book for schools, and it shows the schools, and it says white schools and colored schools or Negro schools. Then it'll show the teacher salaries. It says white teachers, colored teachers. So there was no integration. The integration came apart. Like I said, it started in 4th grade for me. Now, I can't remember what grade it was when they started moving out. They started moving out the high school students first. Probably in about the 3rd grade, they started moving out the high school students, and then the middle school students the year after that. for integration. And what they did once Merrick-Moore was all elementary, then that started integration and busing in the white kids into Merrick-Moore Elementary. So I was there the second and third. Fourth grade, fifth grade was when integration came in. And then sixth grade, then I got bused out.
How big was the school? How big were the class sizes, if you can remember?
It was a small school. Like now it's expanded because they've got a lot more, like, I guess the outdoor classrooms. I can't tell you the exact number of students that went there, but it wasn't, back then I think all of the black schools were probably smaller. Durham High might have been the biggest of them all, as far as space-wise or class-wise. You know, you had more kids that went there in the city. But it wasn't a tremendously large school as class-wise goes, yeah.
Okay, well, I want to get everybody involved. I can have a back and forth with Bonita forever. So projects. You guys have a couple projects. I think I counted 6 on your website.
Yeah.
SCCF, Sustainable Development, Community Garden, Community Preservation, Traffic Safety and Sidewalk, and Trust.
Oh, the conservation fund.
Conservation Fund. I'm so sorry. Conservation Fund. So for each of those, there's 4 of us, 6 of the projects. Talk about their importance.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the progress that you've made with all the projects. I'm sure that they've been existing since, 2023, 2024. And then also talk about the goals, future goals. So I guess we can start with Alexander with the community garden.
Well, I would love Alex and LA to talk about the community garden and what's going on there, because that's both of their gigs over there.
So importance, progress, and goals.
Well, I could say something about the importance, and he can say a lot of the details on
sure.
the progress. And the importance is food sovereignty. The importance is access. Benita talked about the current struggles right now that are related to systemic neglect and a lot of resources leaving the neighborhood. But what a result of that is just that there's issues with access to food and fresh produce. And so with the garden, it is to remediate that, but also to get to foster this sense of ownership of the land for the community, to again honor the many stories of people who have come through this community and been molded by it, and also to reconnect everybody who's of this community to what they already know, which is what Benita mentioned, like growing your own food and knowing that you can cook it and grab it, and that's a memory for so many people here. And so I think the garden represents not only just keeping that alive, but also again making it an educational resource, a long-term resource for not only Merrick-Moore, but just for guests and people who want to learn more about this community. So I think that's the purpose. And there's also, there's an element of also for creating spaces for all people who are not used to being outside and outdoors, to kind of create a space where they feel safe and comfortable going out there. And so that's another element as well.
So do each resident have like a plot? How does that work?
So it doesn't work that way.
It's not that type of community garden.
Right.
It's one where there is everybody kind of participates in this shared space.
Yeah.
The whole space is shared.
Yeah.
And I sort of help facilitate and figure out what's going to be planted, and I get input from community members and other people, and come up with a planting plan, and figure out what do people want to eat, and we have volunteer work days on Saturday mornings where anybody's welcome to come out and get their hands dirty, and we share our knowledge with each other, and or if someone wants to share seeds, they can bring their own seeds. Yeah. I've actually gotten some seeds from Betty and Algin in the community, and
So we distribute the food to people in the community.
Door
It's
to
not
door?
like your regular, where people rent a plot or bed. So we grow the food because this neighborhood.
When you
we're
say
between
we, the core team?
The core team and volunteers, or whoever wants to show up.
Okay.
We plant, we weed, we grow, we harvest, and we distribute to people in the community. Particularly like our seniors who live on a fixed income, or people, we have a large Hispanic population, and some of them are at the lower end of the pole. So we try to deliver to them too. So yeah, so it's a different model. Like most community gardens, someone will rent a plot and they'll come in there and do their own work. We do the work. And we treat it sort of like it's a learning space too. Like we do classes, we've done seed starting classes. We did composting class last year. We've done pesticide-free gardening classes there. And so people can come and they can learn and they can work. And we've got more things planned this year. We're going to be doing a lot of planting, and we're turning them into classes. Alex is very soft-spoken, but he has a way around the garden and the plants, and he knows all of those things. And like, we still have collard greens still growing, and collard greens and turnip greens that are still coming, and people have really enjoyed all of that, you know. And he and LA work in tandem on, you know, creating this great plan, but also when it comes to getting the volunteers in, creating the work plan, harvesting, and knowing like who we're going to distribute these foods to as well. So, you know, our goal, if you go back to fully understanding what is indicative of formerly redline communities, they're usually put in places of flood zones and poor air quality. And we've got a lot of industrial around us, you know. And I think we're somewhere between 11 to 14% people who are living, who are retired and living on Social Security or pension. You know, I think that right now, Mr. Brown is probably our senior person. He's 96, I think he'll be 97 this year, still driving, you know. And so we want to be able to provide something healthy for them. We've gotten away from living off the land for so long, and we're living on convenience and foods that aren't as healthy. So, yeah, that's what we want to do with this garden, is to be able to provide that and to give back and provide for the community good, healthy foods, but not only just provide that, to allow them to come participate in the process, and to just have access to fresh and healthy food. It's not going to cost them anything.
Yeah, fresh food that's also delicious.
Delicious,
And
yeah.
what you said,
Yeah.
well, there's a community garden that is near me in Hillsborough that operates where people can put, you know, can basically grow on a plot themselves. And I think that, I think that's so interesting. I think it's very interesting that Samuel Green Sr. also offers the Skillshare element around classes and education, because that is so what's the right word? It's just, it's integral to just what the Merrick-Moore represents. It's,
Yeah.
it's what the long-term goal is, to share the skills so that it is passed down, so that the information isn't hoarded, so to speak. And I think that's, you know, I think that's a good model. No shade to the other one, but I just think that when we have a community garden that also exists as a space to be, not necessarily a one space fix all space, but an element of aid to help the community long term. I think that Skillshare element is really important. Like, you have a space where people can congregate and learn. And
We get a lot of high school students, we get a lot of college students to come out, but we also get some seniors that have never planted on their own, and they want to learn how to grow something at their house. And how do you do that? Or how do I compost and give back, you know? And we're completely involved in all environmental justice issues. And climate justice is one of those things too. So, you know, we also doing some air quality stuff. We're also doing some air quality stuff as well with with a solar air monitor so that we can monitor the air quality of these cars that are going up and down the road.
So LA, I have a question. Were you raised in the garden?
Was I raised in the garden?
Like, were you raised planting your own?
No, not at all.
So how was that learning curve?
It is a big learning curve for me, but it also, well, I shouldn't say it's a big learning curve. My background being in sort of like, I spent a long time being a community organizer, advocacy work, and so being in the community, I learned the intersections between a lot of things, racialized environments and racialized environmental justice degradation, food justice, and also climate. And so gardening and nature conservation, they began to sort of make connections to me. I think also maybe perhaps the pandemic did some sort of thing to this, because I mean, when we were all in lockdown, all of us wanted to get outside. I think I was one of the first people to, to jump outside and go on the trail. But I think the importance of how how growing food, cultivating food, and land ownership and what we can do on land, that's more new to me. Specifically, it's more connection throughout the issues that I'm so passionate about. So I hope that answers your question. I didn't quite grow up around people who knew a lot of this. I grew up around city folk. I grew up around people who, that generation was a couple generations ago. And so getting back to this has been just enriching, It's like meeting people who you're already related to, so.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what are the goals for your community garden?
Oh man, there's a lot. We have a lot planned. Well, we just planted bare root heirloom apple and pear trees this past weekend, and to me that's really exciting. Just disease-resistant varieties that also varieties that have done historically well in the Piedmont, like old southern apples, like Hunge, horse apple, stuff like that, and just stewarding the land, and then sharing that knowledge with other people, and so that they can do it themselves. And
talk about the pollinator gardens and the wetlands gardens.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we got a grant from the North Carolina Native Plant Society, and so for Earth Day we have scheduled to plant a pollinator garden and a wetland garden with local native species, and so we're gonna get hopefully a lot of participants to come out and community members and just have fun planting plants, and just for the local wildlife, local pollinators, and for the betterment of the community.
How many community members and volunteers do you see on average?
It depends on, I guess, on the season and the weekend, but we've had about 4 or 5. 4 or 5 is pretty consistent, but like for MLK Day, we had
30.
So many people come out.
Yeah, we can if it's something like MLK Day or Creek Week, or even 9/11 Day of CERT, we can get like 30 people come up, and then we're like trying to figure out, okay, well, how are we going to use these people? We have to break them off in different groups and give them tasks to do. Yeah.
So have you ever partnered with UCAN?
Not on a work day sort of situation, but we have had a team bonding day that we've gone up to UCAN and kind of hung out with Miss Delphi. She's my mentor, who I look up to. Everything. I want to be like her someday. Although I can say that, I have given something to Miss Delphine, because we use the hugelkultur technique of gardening, which is an old German, like no-till permaculture technique that Miss Delphine has now adopted, and she's growing like watermelons like crazy. She loves it. So, yeah, we kind of learn from each other.
Nice. So talk about the other projects.
Oh my gosh, we've got a lot of things going on. So I'll talk about the garden overall. We want it to feel it's just under 2 acres of property that we have.
Whoa.
So we want it to feel more park-like, especially when it comes into, like, we have the garden up front, but we're going to be doing a lot of planting of fruit trees, but also flowering trees and shrubbery and things of that sort, and eventually have like an outdoor area with a picnic shelter and a grassy lawn that we can do events on that property, because we want to create a gathering space for community to come together. We received ARPA money from the city, and with that particular project, we're doing a 3-phase thing. So we have part of the funds, the bulk of those funds are going into, on the site it says SSCF, but it's morphed into the Partnership for Healthy Homes that we're working with a couple of other organizations on. But what we do, we're working in Merrick-Moore, Bragtown, and in Walltown, and working with our seniors and lower income people that are on fixed income, lower wealth individuals on a fixed income, that maybe they don't have the money to fix their houses up like they need to fix their houses up. And I truly believe that, seniors shouldn't be put in a situation where they're forced to sell their house, or they're going to lose their home because they can't afford to pay for repairs, or they can't afford to pay the property taxes. So our goal is to go in and provide repairs to these homes, so it's not going to cost them, anything to be able to do that. So we'll do that free of charge. Part of it is in food distribution. We've partnered with the Community Health Coalition, so once a month we do a food distribution here at the church. We don't do a broad advertising on it because it is a smaller food distribution, and we're centering once again in Merrick-Moore, Bragtown, and Walltown. So we kind of market that within the communities, and we set up a station out in the parking lot of the rear parking lot of the church. We have a little assembly line. People come through, they fill out their form, food gets loaded into their car, and they go on their way. And it's just, really exciting to see people when they get the fresh box of food come in. And then the third phase of that is technology training. We're going to be offering technology training for up to 40 seniors, because we don't want them to get lost in the digital divide. So we're going to provide them with a tablet, someone to train them on how to be proficient on using that tablet so they can connect to the internet, get email, or even watch city council meetings and be able to interact in city council meetings. But also, if they've got a smart device like a telephone, how can they use that smart device? How do they set up their text messages? Check their text messages. How do they empty their voicemail box? All of those things, so that they're not lost in that curve. So that's a project that we're working on. We also partner with Clean Air. In Durham in general, that Durham is like I forget what they call it, it's a centralized station where we were able to connect more than 10 homeowners. I think we're like at 14 now that are air monitors across the city of Durham. And that's a big, huge thing, because the city basically had a monitoring station in North Durham, and then there's one at the EPA in South Durham. But for a city that's growing, it just seemed unlikely that every person that when you talk to someone about dealing with air pollution, they were like, well, just plant trees. And that's not always the answer, because trees themselves, and the way the government plants trees, they only plant male trees. And that could actually exacerbate the problem, as all of my lovely people with allergies are having. only planting male trees and without any female trees to pollinate, there's an oversurge of pollen in the air. And so, which is going to lead to more respiratory issues, lead to more allergy issues. And so, you know, we need to find better ways to address air pollution. And if we don't have the data, then we can't do that. So we partner with Clean Air and work with them quite a lot on those things. And we work with Bragtown a lot. We support them because we feel like smaller communities, especially particularly Black communities, we tend to silo ourselves off and think that our problems are our problems and we got to fix them ourselves. But I just believe that, you know, if you can work in like kind with others who have the same issues, then you form these partnerships, form these bonds, form these allegiances, and you can get, you know, more things done quicker and more efficiently if you partner with the others in that way. And I'm thinking, have I missed anything? So we work on a lot. You know, we really work cross-sectionally on a lot of different issues around the city. Primary focus is this neighborhood and the well-being of this neighborhood, and that there are no bad actors when it comes to people coming in and trying to do things that's going to destabilize the community, one, but disrupt any of our longtime residents in their way of life. We don't want to see that happen. And, you know, our goal is to be really hyper-focused on conservation and green spaces. And so we are actually working towards that now. And I don't want to say too much about it, but we're working towards owning more land and more property so that we can preserve green spaces. And I don't know, it's like the biodiversity is something that when you're a kid, you kind of take it for granted when you see frogs and all that stuff, you know, and you play with frogs and tadpoles, and then one day you don't see them. And it was last year that I saw a baby frog jumping on the garden property, and I got so excited. Because we're building a space for that biodiversity to live and to happen and not to be, you know, chased out. And it's essential to human life. Yeah, so all of that's important.
So how is your well-being? Because, I mean, just listening to you rattle off all of the projects and responsibilities of the Merrick-Moore Community Development Corporation, and I'm sure you have a hand in all of them, being the executive director.
Mm-hmm.
I know you care about the community. I know you care about what Merrick-Moore CDC stands for, but how do you handle burnout? How do you come into work every day with a smile on your face? How do you sustain that energy? Like, I gotta ask.
I don't come to work with a smile on my face every day.
Okay, fair.
You know, I believe in people feeling how they're feeling, and but we laugh and we joke and around a lot. But what I did learn, because the end of 2023 going into 2024, I was really having a difficult time coping with all of the responsibility. So I said, you know what? I've been wanting to visit some friends that live in Germany for a very long time, and we've had a hard time making it work with schedules. And so I reached out. I'm like, can I come in August? They're like, we're going to be in Thailand. I'm like, okay, I'm coming to Thailand. So that's what I did. I just dropped everything, and you know what? It was fine. So, you know, I'm actively like looking now, where is my vacation for 2025, you know, going to be? Because it's important when you're a community leader or doing advocacy work, we don't get paid for those things, you know, and we put in a lot of time and love and effort, and there's, a lot of times we don't have anything pouring that back into us. So it's difficult sometimes to walk away from it. But coming from a very different background to where I am now, one of the things that I remember is a statement that was made. Sometimes when you've got too many balls juggling in the air, juggling too many balls, sometimes you just need to let them drop and walk away from them. And then come back and regroup and do it again. So, yeah.
So how have you guys managed the stresses of Merrick-Moore Community Development Corporation?
Oh, well, it helps when most of your job description is outside and working outdoors. That's, I mean, I guess I've been doing that for a while. You know, I've worked in horticulture for over a decade, and I've always sought out jobs where I could have part of my hours outside. And so it's, tending a garden to me is very enjoyable. It's one of the most fundamental things you can do as a human being. And
It's healing.
it's healing, yes, it's very healing. And so it's a labor of love, like, to be honest with you. And also it's also creative. You know, planting and gardening can be very creative, and that to me is an outlet. Yeah.
I would say, yeah, mine is also being outside. I'm an introvert, so I recharge by myself. So I like to go on nice walks, go hang out with my dogs, and then when I am ready to be around people, I go hang out with my family, then just get back to work. So yeah, just definitely incorporating some breaks and just some me time.
Okay. Well, any final statements that you want to make on behalf of the Merrick-Moore Community Development Corporation, or anything that you want to leave our audience with?
Yeah, you know, I'm in and out of a lot of meetings, and a lot of these meetings are like talking about the youth and youth programming, and I think that's important, but I think it's also important not to forget about our seniors. And a lot of times in a lot of cultures, seniors can be displaced and forgotten about, you know. There are some cultures where they're revered and you honor them. But it seems that American culture is not like that. It's like you take your seniors and you send them off somewhere to be. But I have a great deal of love and respect for everyone that's been in my life. And I think it's important that we honor and center our seniors. I would love to have a program where we're connecting seniors with our youth together, because there's so much wisdom there to be shared and to be passed down. And we need to honor these stories. We need to honor these traditions and the rituals. We need to honor them. Because I don't know where we're going as a country, but I think, you know, we're going to need to really depend on growing our own food for a while. We're going to need to learn how to become more self-sufficient. And I'm trying to think of this word that someone used. It was like we need to be, what was that word did I use? I can't remember. But it was akin to being in community with one another and connecting with your neighbors and knowing your neighbors and helping and supporting those that are around you. We're going to need to rely on each other a lot more as the future moves forward. So I think creating those connections and being in community with our neighbors, and I consider Bragtown a neighbor because they're right next door, and Walltown a neighbor, but all of our neighbors in Durham, yeah, and wherever you are. I think it's going to be really important to be connected and not to be too much of a silo.
I agree.
I can relate because I do that too. That's another way I kind of disconnect, is I'll just go and be by myself for a little bit. But yeah, no, and that's what the community organization, we are about service and helping others. That was the core mission of the organization. That was a core mission of when they went down the nonprofit road. And that's our core mission today, is basically being of service and helping others. And that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, and I agree. There's so much you can learn from senior members of the community, and I sometimes try to seek that out. Like I've learned a lot on my own, but there's, as a gardener, you're always learning something every season. You learn something new, and I've grown different turnips like purple top, but then like I discovered like these other varieties like 7-top and curly top that I had no idea about, and just by talking with community members and like asking questions, like, oh, I have these potatoes, like I want to grow them in the spring. Where's the best place to store them? So I can grow them in the spring, and like small things like that. Like you can gain a lot just by talking with your community.
I agree.
I guess I would just say, get involved with your community leaders. Find any local community leaders that might need help, because like Benita said, a lot of them carry the burden themselves, and a lot of times they're doing this work for free. So if any way you can, reach out and help, whether that's helping them take pictures, helping them with social media, helping them with their website, just any way you can help, just to allow them to make more progress and make more of a difference. Because before me, Alea, and Alex were on the team, Benita was doing all this work herself. Wow. And she's still carrying a lot of the weight, even with us here. So any way you can help your local community leaders, I would say please do, because they need it. They need it, and it's important work that they're doing.
Well, I gotta say, what you all are doing, what you stand for, what you represent through the Merrick-Moore Community Development Corporation, is truly honorable. And it's definitely something that, if you're not giving yourself a pat on the back, if you're always in the zone, I'm here to give you a verbal pat on the back.
Thank you.
Because I know it's a lot. Just looking in your eyes and hearing you rattle off what you're doing, that is huge. That's why I asked, like, how are you taking care of yourself? You're always worried about other people, which is great, but it's just like, man, I know that that's a huge burden, but somebody has to do it.
Yeah.
If nobody's going to step up, Merrick-Moore is going to decimate.
Exactly.
And the people at power don't care, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you. I know I don't live in this community, but thank you for what you're doing. Please continue to do what you're doing and have that positive spirit that you all have, because you guys are truly making a difference. All of those older residents that you're looking out for, who you just talked about, people forget about, you're making a difference in their lives.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's what we strive to do, yeah.
You had something to say?
I was going to say, it would be fantastic if there was a sidewalk to the community garden. That way more people could access the garden and come visit, and especially the seniors.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like progress is being made. I mean, unfortunately, after 35 years, but
Yeah. We're still at the helm of NC State DOT, because they actually own Cheek Road, and also the city Department of Transportation. So we're moving in the right direction. We don't have a commitment yet, but we're moving in the right direction. Yeah.
that's better than staying stagnant.
Yeah.
And
it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. I know, it's just a matter of when. My hope is that it's within the next 3 years that this is gonna happen, so, yeah. Because capital improvement is like, make the commitment, gotta find the money to do it. But there's time, within the next 30 years, they can get it done.
Well, I hope sooner.
Yes.
But yes, thank you guys. Thank you guys so much
Thank you.
for opening up the church for us to so comfortably sit in and record this interview. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.